Welcome back to The Explainer. We are diving straight into a massive, rapidly evolving geopolitical crisis today. The escalating military and economic standoff between the United States and Iran. It's a complex chessboard, so we're going to look past all the political noise to examine the hard data and the actual on-the-ground strategies. Let's break down exactly what's happening based on the latest global intelligence.
Just to ground us in how incredibly high the stakes are right now, listen to this direct statement from the Iranian military. The armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran will deal forcefully with any disruption to commercial vessels. You guys, this isn't just standard political posturing. It's a calculated, direct threat broadcast to the world, and it perfectly sets the stage for the highly volatile standoff we're seeing.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover the massive central command strikes, the economic chokehold in the Strait of Hormuz, the widening global flashpoints and alliances, and finally, how all of this is impacting domestic security.
Okay, let's jump right into that first piece, the massive central command strikes and this serious tactical escalation. The sheer scale of recent military operations is honestly staggering. Over just a single weekend, U.S. forces launched a massive wave of retaliatory strikes in the region. We are talking about over 300 targets hit. When you see a number that large deployed in such a tight time frame, it's a glaring signal of a major shift in military posture.
And the U.S. definitely wasn't striking at random. They systematically went after infrastructure designed to cripple military capabilities. They hit missile sites, drone launch facilities, crucial naval assets, and ammunition depots. Basically, they were systematically dismantling the physical hardware that enables further attacks. In military speak, this is a strictly kinetic response, focusing entirely on destroying physical assets.
What's really fascinating here is how modern warfare is literally evolving right in front of us. Central Command actually used sea drones, these one-way attack surface vessels, for the very first time in U.S. history to strike an enemy target. They successfully hit a ship repair facility and a submarine at a port. And get this, a really interesting detail from the broadcast is that these specific drones are actually manufactured right here in the U.S., specifically by a company down in the Texas-Louisiana area.
So where exactly are we in the timeline? Military experts like Matthew S. Buckley, who is a decorated F-18 fighter pilot, point out that the U.S. is roughly 126 days into this specific phase of the conflict. He characterizes the U.S. strategy right now as punching back harder. The momentum has completely shifted away from a ceasefire and toward actively driving the fight. But kinetic warfare is only half the battle here. Which brings us to part 2, the Strait of Hormuz and the economic choke point. We are looking at a collision of two wildly different strategic goals. On one side, you have the stated U.S. stance from the former president, which is to reinstate a blockade specifically targeting Iranian ships, but keeping the strait open to everyone else for a 20% security fee. On the flip side, you have the Iranian regime's hardline response, absolutely no U.S. interference, and a vow to fight any disruptions outside their own designated routes. To give you a clearer picture of that U.S. strategy, here's a direct quote from former President Trump. "We will become the guardian of the straits. Maybe we will call it the guardian angel of the strait. We should be reimbursed for that." The logic here is that by essentially acting as the primary security force and running the strait, the U.S. is providing a massive service to global commerce. Therefore, the wealthy nations relying on that security should be footing the bill. But predictably, that hit a massive friction point. The Iranian armed forces pushed back aggressively, stating, "We will in no circumstances allow the United States to interfere. We'll deal forcefully with any disruption." They even went so far as to label the U.S. military an invading and pirate force. Analysts point out that trying to control the Strait of Hormuz is really a desperate effort by the regime to assert regional dominance using whatever leverage they have left. And this isn't just theoretical posturing, folks. This has incredibly severe, real-world consequences. Since just this past Tuesday, Iran has reportedly struck 4 civilian commerce ships that were traveling outside of the regime's designated routes. We have to remember that these ships are crewed by innocent civilian mariners from all over the world, and tragically, these strikes have reportedly resulted in civilian casualties. Plus, for the rest of us, shutting down this critical shipping lane means massive immediate shocks to global energy prices and supply chains. It's a squeeze we're all going to feel at the gas pump and the grocery store.
Okay, let's move to our third point, global flashpoints and alliances, or what we can call the wider chessboard.
The really crucial takeaway here is that this conflict is absolutely not neatly contained between two nations. Look at the regional fallout. When the U.S. launched its strikes, Iran actually responded by firing into neighboring allied countries, specifically Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, and Oman. Now, Iran stated they weren't targeting the host countries themselves, they were specifically aiming at U.S. military assets and headquarters stationed within those borders. Still, it's a massive escalation that forces these allied nations to navigate a very dangerous crossfire.
To make matters worse, this conflict is pulling in global superpowers at an alarming pace. According to military insights from the broadcast, neither side is using the lulls in fighting to talk peace. Instead, they're actively rearming, and Iran is reportedly getting support from Russia and China. This isn't just about handing over weapons either. It's reported they're receiving highly sophisticated targeting intelligence from these nations to better strike allied headquarters in the region. It is a major geopolitical headache.
And that actually leads us to a highly concerning pivot. While everyone's eyes are glued to the Middle East, military experts are asking a very pointed question. What about the U.S.'s southern flank? We really need to shift our focus from halfway across the world to a reported threat that is much, much closer to the American mainland.
This brings us to what the broadcast calls the Cuba connection. Experts are warning that there are reportedly hundreds of Iranian drones currently stationed in Cuba. That is literally just 90 miles off the coast of Key West, Florida. It's alarming because it puts these potential threats incredibly close to vital U.S. military infrastructure, like the Homestead Air Reserve Base and CENTCOM itself. Because of this proximity, the U.S. isn't just relying on military vigilance, they're countering with sustained economic pressure, often spearheaded by figures like Secretary of State Marco Rubio, to keep the heat on these adversaries right in America's backyard.
Finally, let's look at Part 4, Domestic Security and Threats, bringing it all back home.
When the geopolitical temperature gets this hot, the shockwaves are definitely felt at the highest levels of domestic protection. The broadcast actually highlighted a reported Iranian assassination plot against the former U.S. president. Fox News requested a statement from the Secret Service, and their official response was telling. Our most important responsibility is safeguarding the president. We consume information on a global level to effectively execute our global operations. They don't comment directly on specific intelligence, but this makes it crystal clear that domestic protection now requires a massive, global intelligence network to counter serious state-level threats.
Adding a whole other layer of complexity to this is the issue of information control. The broadcast noted that media leaks concerning the specific security capabilities of a new aircraft actually forced the former president to rely on a backup plane. It just goes to show how, in a high-stakes threat environment, even routine media reporting can potentially compromise the operational security of a former commander-in-chief.
Which brings us to our final thought. We've traced the massive wave of Central Command strikes. We've looked at the economic squeeze and the tragic civilian toll in the Strait of Hormuz, and we've seen this conflict spill into allied nations, and potentially as close as 90 miles from U.S. shores. All of this is triggering incredible security measures right here at home. So I'll leave you with this question to ponder. With tensions escalating this rapidly across military, economic, and domestic fronts, what is the ultimate endgame for U.S.-Iran relations? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on the chessboard.